Hi folks, and welcome to the Module 2 video lecture here. So you might notice you are not seeing me. That's normal. Instead, what we're going to do is review the assignments both on the syllabus so that we understand how it fits together as a module, and then individually we'll go ahead and review the assignments as well. So this will be like a guided reading of what you're supposed to do over the next couple of months, and in between I'll give a little bit of my famous ad-libbing to kind of put things in my own words and rephrase some of the course documents to make it a little more approachable to you. So I highly recommend before you watch this that you just open up the documents, the syllabus, the assignment sheet so that you have it there. Or conversely, if you prefer to just take notes on this while I'm speaking and you are looking at the materials since you're looking at my screen as well, boy, that would also make sense. So either way works. Go ahead, take notes, and we'll proceed. So first of all, I just want to note that the assignments are already posted on Blackboard. All of your discussion threads that you're going to need for the scholarly writing unit, Module 2, are here in the discussions. And then if we go to assignments under writing prompts, you'll see the conference paper abstract, the conference paper, and the annotated bibliography are all listed as well. Now those correspond to conference abstract, conference paper, annotated bibliography. Look at that. And the reason I'm grouping these three together is because we are at a pivotal moment in the course where we move from Module 1, Discourse, Community, and Genre Analysis here, and in that module, you're writing for me. Even though the material was unfamiliar, you were writing in a medium that was comfortable to an audience you were familiar with, the instructor in a writing course. So it wasn't too much of a shift in a lot of ways from work that you've already done. However, now with Module 2, conference abstract, conference paper, annotated bibliography, you're writing for a different audience. Now, of course, I'm still reading it, but I'm no longer reading it as your instructor in a writing class. I'm reading it more or less as a peer, as a member of your discourse community and or community of practice. So the needs of the genres shift a little bit with this module in that you're no longer writing to demonstrate what you've learned for an instructor. You're now writing to create knowledge for a peer. So what I'm going to do right now is, with that in mind, I'm going to go through each of the assignments. We'll look at the collective kind of modularization of them, and then we'll look at each individual project. So let's see. If we look at the paragraph description here, it tells us that the assignment requires you to blah, 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 blah for a scholarly conference paper, a short paper developing those ideas, and an accompanying annotated bibliography. So I have a short description here of what a scholarly conference abstract does. It distills complex, academically relevant projects into short, bite-sized chunks of text, while resulting papers explore a single idea and introduce it to an audience of peers. So quickly, I may accidentally use the word proposal, or you may find the word proposal as you get into this work here, but for our purposes, that's really synonymous with abstract. There are some finer differences, but for your purposes, it's not going to come into play too much. What you really need to know is that the conference abstract fundamentally, well, it does what it says it does right here, and in doing so, it takes the expert knowledge that you have to contribute to your discourse community, and it describes it. So the conference abstract that we're writing is a descriptive abstract, which is a little bit different than the informational abstracts that you might see in indexes or as you research. When you research a scholarly article, of course, in scholarly articles, you'll see all the time the abstract at the beginning. The purpose of that is to tell you, a reader, whether or not the full article will be worth your time. And especially in the technical professions, among other things, those abstracts will usually reveal the findings of the study. And it's informational in that you learn about the topic by reading the abstract, even though there's still a larger article to read. With an descriptive abstract, it doesn't so much give away the findings as much as it describes the contents of the paper. So it'll tell you what the paper is going to do. Think about what you just did in the discourse, community, and genre analysis, how you broke the parts off from the whole in order to figure out how the writing worked. That's kind of what happens with the descriptive abstract. So you do, of course, mention enough content, but it's mostly about what the paper does. So you'll tell the reader, okay, this paper will. And I have a sample for you that is on Blackboard as well. So at any rate, the way that Module 2 works, you start with a conference abstract. You write the abstract, and then you write the paper that results from it, ergo the 25% of your grade. And then as you do this, you maintain an annotated bibliography here, which also counts for 10% of your overall grade. So the way that all of this is going to work is that this is essentially the research module. You're going to pursue your inquiry topic, which is your homework. I believe, actually, let's see if we go here and we look at, we're already in the syllabus. If we scroll down the syllabus to Tuesday's work, there you go, inquiry question. So we're going to look at some issues that come up around this topic. We're going to look for questions that you might have about it, and you're going to try to come up with a question to help direct your research for the semester. Now, this is also the Asking Questions handout that I've uploaded. You should refer to that to try to find an open-ended kind of good question. You have the resource there. So what happens with this project is that you're going to revisit your preliminary bibliography. You're going to write a long paragraph in which you narrow your focus and specify your questions. And from there, you're just going to start reading. You're really going to start reading about a topic that interests you, and you're just going to learn as much as you can about it so that you can contribute to the discourse community around this issue. One of the challenges here is that to the extent that you want to pursue your inquiry topic, you also need to stay within the discourse community norms, and you need to pick a topic that is current, is relevant, is debatable, there's discussion around. So familiarize yourself with some of the contents of the journals, and look through the library guide on the ENGW3302 website on Snell, and look through the different journals that it recommends, not just the databases, but the journals. So for instance, if we go to library.northeastern.edu, and if we go to eJournals, and if, say, you're interested in big data, I'm on my home computer here, so the internet's not quite as fast as at work. And if we say big data, we search for it, you'll see we get 41 results, including the Journal of Big Data in Society, Journal of Big Data, IEEE Transactions on Big Data. And so if you search this way, for instance, we'll go with Big Data in Society just because it's right there. And if we go to view what it has, I'm going to have to log in since I'm off campus today. Oh, look at that, I was logged in already. What you can actually see is you can just browse their issues, and you can get a sense for what are topics within this field that are interesting. So data is capital, datification, accumulation, and extraction, social imaginaries of data activism, medical research, big data, need for privacy by design. And what you'll do then is, if you research this way, you can actually just go back to the previous issue as well, and you can start to look for trends. For instance, datification again, and data fiction, narrating data, how do data come to matter. So you'll notice patterns, right? Social construction of technological stasis. And of course, what you might realize is that if we go to the title here, Big Data and Society, it's that society focus that comes into play. It might differentiate this publication from, for instance, if we were to just go to Big Data, which I'm imagining is going to be different if we view virtual contents. We can close Big Data in Society. We don't need that anymore. And what do we get here? Ooh, big data, efficient markets, and the end of daily fantasy sports as we know it. Sports analytics in the era of big data. Effects of pacing properties of performance in long-distance running. So, and this looks like it's a sport-themed issue. Pretty cool. So, anyway, you might notice different themes, and if you just research that way instead of just going to, let's see, if we just go to You can see the home page here for the library works really well here. We just go to Scholar One Search and we just type big data. What do we get? We are going to get 3.4 million results. Now, interestingly, it does begin with the journal link to the Big Data Journal, but then we get all kinds of other stuff, articles, ebooks. And so for this point, you'd have to be a little more precise in how you search. I would highly recommend not just searching this way, but on the off chance that you're really sold on it, you could do that. Peer-reviewed journals, you want the full text online, you want articles, and we want the date from, let's call it 2016 really to 2019. And so if we refine, okay, the filters didn't go through. So still 261,000 results. A few ways we can narrow stuff down from here. What I would do, again, would be the full text online. You want to go to articles because we don't want any of this stuff, at least not right now. At this point, you can go to the subject filter, which is pretty useful. And you could say, for instance, let's see, machine learning. Okay. Now we're down to 3,600 results. And then even within machine learning at this point, if you go to subject, it should see it's going to get a little bit more precise even. So we could say machine learning and medicine. So you're interested in learning about medicine too. And all of a sudden we're down to 285 results, which is probably a manageable search total for you to just get through. So that's a quick little library tutorial on gathering sources, and I really recommend using things like filters and subjects and date to gather your information rather than just Scholar One search or anything like that, because when you keep your filters in place, here's your quality control, here's your accessibility, here's your genre that you're working in, and here are your subjects. So when you do this, you're forcing yourself to research like a researcher rather than a student writing a paper. You're essentially working within discourse communities rather than trying to invent your own. And this is a very useful research strategy. I would really recommend you research that way. So that's how you're going to go gather sources. Initially, I didn't intend that to be part of the video, but here we go. So start doing that for now. Your first post for this module that you're going to have to do is going to be the conference abstract. You know what? For that, there's a few ways we could do it. One way we might do would be, for instance, to go to like the Journal of Big Data, and we can go to, let's see, can we go to the journal homepage here? Do we have a link to it? Okay, they don't have an easy link to the Big Data Journal, although I don't have that here. But if we were to, for instance, just go to Big Data Conferences 2019, and you're going to get a ton of results. So look, I don't know that I recommend Google for this exclusively. It is a good way to get started, though, just because it's effective. So here, for instance, 2019 IEEE Big Data Call for Papers. So this is what's called a CFP, a call for papers. Now, this is an invitation by a professional society, in this case the IEEE, the kind of leading engineering association, on a given topic. And so what do they say? In recent years, big data has become a new ubiquitous term. Big data is transforming science, engineering, medicine, healthcare, finance, business, yada, yada, yada. Big Data Conference Series started in 2013 and has established itself as the top-tier research conference in big data. Now look, this is really important. Research conference, okay? Research conference. That means, yeah, there will probably be some industry people there, but the purpose of it is research. It's to share development, knowledge, rather than business or industry concerns primarily. So this is an example of that discourse community rather than community of practice concern. So, for instance, they tell us a little bit about how exclusive it is. They say that in 2017, the acceptance rate was 17.8%. Think of it like a college acceptance rate. That's low, okay, with close to 1,000 registered participants from 50 countries. So this is a exclusive conference. but it's also a conference that would be worth applying to because of its research focus and the IEEE affiliation. And these professional and scholarly society affiliations are really what you want to look for with a conference. So we could even look for something like engineering associations conferences. And so here's something that would be related but a little bit different. The 2018 Professional Engineers Conference. If you look at the URL too, you'll notice that it ends in a .org. So that's, I know it's a little bit of an antiquated way to evaluate credibility, but at least it tells you it's not a .com. It's in Vegas. It was in Vegas. That was a good one. So let's see. If we look through here, some things that we might find would be, let's see, clamor for conference attendees, award winners, BOD. I'm looking for a CFP, a call for papers, where they kind of invite and tell us their themes. It really doesn't actually say. So to that point, I'm not sure what to say about this one. Maybe this would be a good one to use. Let's go back to the other one. What's better? So if we look through the CFP, what do we get? We get example topics of interest include. Think of those as the potential, not titles for your paper, but areas you might work with. And they break it down into areas too, right? Big data infrastructure, management, search and mining, and it goes on and on. So they'll tell you, so they actually want a full-length paper through the online submission system. So they're not looking for an abstract, which is something that you will see at some point. And some points will do this. Again, the more prestigious papers probably will do that, but most will actually ask for a shortened version of your paper. So what I want you to do is find a CFP, explore Google. That's a good way. If through the library we can go to the eJournal Finder again and we get something like Big Data and Society, we'll go back there. Looks like I did need that. And if we view the journal contents, again, I'm looking for the link to the journal homepage is what I'm looking for here. Also notice the related subjects in the bottom left. That's a way that you might be able to find some additional sources as well, and you might be able to think about topics or disciplinary matters that way. Okay, I know I'm setting a terrible example for my students here. I'm just going to search for Big Data and Society Journal. Sometimes Google really is the best. So the reason I'm looking for the journal homepage is because a lot of times journals may sponsor conferences themselves, and that's a great way to tap into an existing discourse community. So let's see if we can find one. If we can't, we can't. No big deal. They don't all do this, so it's really not that surprising if they don't. But sometimes you'll find it, and like I said, it's just a good way to kind of get a CFP that you know will work for you. Yeah, this is more of the journal information itself. It's really not about any kind of conference. So they probably don't sponsor a particular conference, although, yeah. So, okay, 86 dot. All right, so back to the work. Find a CFP, and you're going to write an abstract for it. As you read, you are going to maintain an annotated bibliography. So what does that mean? An annotated bibliography is intended as a record of your research and source use throughout this process. It's a chance for you to just keep information on your sources, to organize them with appropriate citation format, of course. And after you read a source, write a few sentences about it. Okay? Write a few sentences. You're going to break the annotated bibliography into two sections, works cited and works consulted. Works cited means that you mention and discuss the source in your abstract and or paper. Sources that don't make it into the abstract or paper are in a works consulted. The idea there is that they're background reading, and it tells your reader, in this case me, that you have a kind of broader base beyond the specialized sources that you're actually citing in your paper. I have the exact breakdown of what you need to do in the written assignment sheet here. So you'll notice the annotated bibliography, if we go back to the syllabus, is actually due the end of the unit. I believe sometime in March here. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, March 19th here, the annotated bib is due. And that's due after, well, it's due, I guess, sorry, 3 days before the conference paper. And again, that's because the way that you use these sources is going to change as you use them. So one of the challenges of the annotated bibliography is that it's an opportunity to show how your sources fit together. So why this collection of sources for this purpose? How do they work? Why not something else? And in your entries, you're going to be able to write about that. In fact, you should focus on that. The goal with the annotated bib is not to write a long summary of each entry. It's to write a short, useful summary that's different from the abstract, and then to say how it fits together. How are you going to use this source? How does this source contribute to your project? Um, and then you're going to maintain this over the course of your project, because guess what? Some sources are not going to end up in your final project. Those are works consulted. As the focus of your project shifts, you're going to probably need to get more. Those might become the works cited. The idea is to make the annotated bib a record of everything you've done, so we see the work and we see how your projects fit into the discourse community. The conference paper that is going to result from all of this is going to be a longer version of the abstract. You're going to describe the paper in the abstract, and then you're going to write it in the conference paper section. And you'll see 5 pages. That's short, because at a conference, you don't have that much time to present. If we read about 1 page every 2 minutes, that's a 10-minute presentation. So what is the conference paper? It's a tweener genre of scholarly writing. They're not usually cited by future researchers, as they're not peer-reviewed or usually published, but they do communicate discourse community-specific knowledge to an expert audience. So typically conference papers arrive when a researcher kind of has an idea of a knowledge gap or problem that they want to address within a community, and they have some preliminary responses, but they haven't yet gathered enough materials or written enough to submit a manuscript. So the idea of a conference paper is it's a chance for productive feedback between members of a discourse community. You go in, you give your talk, a couple other people on the same panel give your talk, and then afterwards the whole room discusses your work. What can you do better? What sources do they recommend you use? What did you do that they didn't expect? And it's a chance to just kind of talk out your research in a less formal setting than submitting a full-length peer-reviewed article submission, which is incredibly time and resource draining. And if you don't have this informal feedback, it may not be worth publishing. So this is a useful chance to kind of engage members of the discourse community in a formal setting, but also without all of the labor and materials that go into the full-length project. So that's what you're doing. You're writing the abstract, you're writing the paper from it, and you're keeping a record of your work with your annotated bibliography. I've broken this down into assignments along the way that'll scaffold into it, and I've walked you through how to do the research through the eJournal Finder in the library. And hopefully I've at least helped you use Google a little more effectively. Of course, I'm expecting a lot of questions on this, so feel free to post in the course Q&A page, and anything else that you might need, just be in touch. I'll, of course, follow up later this week. Have a good one.